Welcome to Booklicious Podcast, where we delve into the world of books and comics and explore the stories, characters, and illustrations that captures and inspire us. Join us as we share our thoughts, opinions, and recommendation on the latest and greatest in the literary world. Whether you are a passionate reader or just looking to expand your horizon, this is the place to be. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's get lost in the pages together. This is Booklicious Podcast.
Hello, Mr. Steve. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm Priya, and I'll be guiding our conversation today as your interviewer from Go Bookmart. And it's a pleasure to speak with you today. And I really appreciate you taking the time out and discuss your book with us.
Well, my pleasure.
And I recently had the opportunity to read your book, Crankiness, and it has definitely sparked my curiosity. And I must say your book, Crankiness, offers a truly unique perspective. And I'm very excited to learn more about your insights and experiences as an author. So
Sure.
Can we kick things off? First question.
Okay, ask the first question.
Yes. So the first question is, how is crankiness a superpower? Like you say it is a trigger. How does it remind us to utilize skillful means? How do you put it that?
Crankiness is a superpower when it really pushes you to go beyond where you're at. You know, it always like there's some frustration and you're feeling cranky and you could use it to grow, or you could use it not. So my first crankiness book, I have Grown Up Guide to Effective Crankiness, called the CrankaTsuris Methods, and this is my follow-up book, Cranky Superpowers, Life Lessons Learned from the Common CrankaTsuris Chronicles. The thing about what I talk about crankiness, I call the CrankaTsuris. I give it a name, and Tsuris is a Jewish word for problems. So that's like instead of CrankaTsuris, it's Tsuris. And the thing is, by giving it a name, it's just something everybody has. And like in my first book, I talked about, like, you're going to see your grandmother, your aunt, you're going into somebody's home, they ask you to take your shoes off. Because I just bought this rug for $20. It's a very expensive rug and I don't want to get it dirty. And you take off your shoes. But then what we do to each other, like, we could end up like puking whatever bad thoughts in our head. So by just giving it a name, it's like, okay, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm having something like I talk about the common cold. You have one or two a year. A common CrankaTsuris, you have 2 or 3 in the morning alone. So understanding that, and then when you see it, you slow it down. You can make it a superpower, and that could be in my book. There's so many different ways. So just there's Cinderella CrankaTsuris, where Cinderella, she doesn't get the gown, the horse and carriage. She gets a megaphone, so she learns to have her voice, and she's cranky. So, but she has her voice; she's heard. I have a story with the 3 little pigs, Inky, Pinky, and Stinky, and they were all going to university, and Stinky was watching a lecture how to put lipstick on a pig. And Stinky, what a silly thing, it's just putting lipstick on the pig. Who needs to know that? And Stinky started daydreaming, and that was this, so Stinky's a little cranky, but starts daydreaming and figures out how to build a house with bricks and and the big bad wolf doesn't end up too well in that story. So, there's so many different kind of like little stories I put in that you have a point, like I do with the Wizard of Oz, where they're saying you're spinning my wheel, and the lion ends up getting to eat the wizard, which is a very, very fun part to write about. So again, just they were cranky, but they found her superpowers.
Of course. Well, it sounds very insightful, but for me, it's fun as well. It was the stories what you've written and what you spoke about. That was very fun to hear. So of course, your second book as well. I would like to read it someday. So can we move on to the second question now?
Sure.
Okay, so how do you find the book about recognizing our crankiness, and how can we break a repetitive cranky cycle? How do we do that?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yes, I'll read it for you. So how's the book about recognizing our crankiness? How do we recognize our crankiness, and how do you get that from the book itself? And then how do we break a repetitive cranky cycle?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
Okay,
Talk
no
slow.
worries, no worries. So maybe you can talk about some takeaways from your own life, like how do coaches, psychology professionals, and life hackers often get it wrong. So some takeaways from your own life.
Oh, so when I wrote this book, I've been married to therapists, for therapists for over 30 years, and I've read a lot of like self-help books, where it seems like it's written by let's say a psychologist, a therapist, and in the first chapter they have a really good idea. Oh wow, that's really good. Like reflecting back, for example, and then you read the second chapter, and it's the same point. And the third chapter and the fourth is the same point. So I wanted to write a book that could help. Actually, I call it a help yourself book, not a self-help book, but because self-serve ice cream is like very passive. Helping yourself is very, very active. So that's what I try to focus in on. But every chapter is a different piece. It's a very different thing than the next chapter. So no two chapters are alike, and except they all entertain, and they each have some kind of lesson. So in my own personal life, just to give you an example, again with Cranky Superpowers. And this, I tell the story in A Grown-Up Guide to Effective Crankiness, my other book, where I actually was quite heavy. I was around 240 pounds, 40 waist. This was December 87. And within like 10 days, my girlfriend broke up with me around Christmas Eve. And then on New Year's Eve, my brand new car got stolen. And then I got fired from my job. So I lost my girl, my car, and my job within like 10 days. So I was a little cranky. And I said to myself, no matter how tired I was going to go to the gym. And and when I started out, I was doing like 3 minutes on the life cycle and being out of breath. And then I keep working at it and cutting out different things. Eating wise, and I lost like 85 pounds in 5 months. So I went from a 40 waist to a 32 waist in 5 months, and then within a year I was running marathons. So and I'm running in the next month I'm running my 56th marathon. So that was that cranky moment in my life. I decided that, well, geez, I'm going to try to do something about it as opposed to just get stuck in the mud. So that I talk about in both books. I talk about the difference between changing a habit and creating new normals. And I talk about like a habit, like like your New Year's resolution. You're going to try to find good habits, and you hear people talk about habits. And I think habits, whether good or bad, are temporary. It's like finding a parking spot. And a normal, you're changing your normal, something you normally do. You wake up in the morning, this is what you do. It's building a house. It's permanent. It's more like solid. You're not going to like build a house and then move out the next day. Parking spot, you might have to move the car. You might want to actually drive it somewhere. So that's the difference. And that's what I focus in on.
And I must say, like 56th marathon is what I heard. Is it right?
Yes, it doesn't get easier. In some ways it gets easier mentally because I'm used to it, but physically I'm getting a little...
Definitely. Hats off you for that. Okay, moving on to next question. So what do you think, habits or developing good habits does a disservice?
What the good habits?
Yes, What do you think, like habits or developing good habits does a disservice? And what would you prefer? A disservice.
A disservice.
Yes.
It's nothing wrong with having a good habit or a bad habit. I just like, no, actually having a bad habit is not good. But the having good habits is, it's just it depends on how you look at it. Like, I think I call what I do, having good things I do, is good habits. And again, I like psychologically, I like to call it normal, because I think there's more permanency there. Like, and once in a while, I might treat myself. Like, I'm a healthy eater, but once in a while, it's like, oh, I'll go get that burger, eat something like, not so good for me. So there's a difference. It's a difference. It's a mental state, I think. So you could call it a habit, and that could be your habit for, somebody could smoke for 40 years. My father was a smoker. It was his habit, but it was his normal too. And actually, by maybe looking at it as a bad habit, he stopped smoking when he retired. But yeah, it was like he became just quitting. He dropped the habit, and then not smoking was the new normal. So again, it's a terminology thing, I think. But I think the way to look at it and the way to approach it is, if you want to make a change, saying, this is going to be it. It's not, I don't even have to think about it. This is what I do. I wake up in the morning, I have my coffee, wake up in the morning, I go for a run. Some days, I feel like I don't want to run, but it's my normal. I'm going to go out and do it and push myself.
Oh, well, that was so insightful. And then I would also like to know how you approach your crankiness with both humor and empathy.
Yeah, I'm kind of person, like, I'll laugh before I cry. So I just when I wrote all of this, I was quite cranky, and I had to figure out things. So in finding humorous ways to look at it, where in the past it was just like, just like this steam coming out of my ears. So one example, in my grown-up guide to effective crankiness, I have this chapter called "Drive Me Crazy, CrankaTsuris," and it kind of interweaves all these people in the same experience having the same reaction. It drives me crazy when, and then, so the line in my head, like, something happens, it drives me crazy when, and you fill in the blank, and I can't understand how, sort of thing. Again, so like, so in this story, we were going to a restaurant and we're not getting served, and then we're saying it drives me crazy when, and of course, 3 people come in after us and they're getting served, and they're getting their menus, and they're eating, they're leaving. We're still waiting to get our order taken. And it's like, drives me crazy when it takes forever to get served, and I can't understand how they're not taking our order. What happens is we complain to the waiter, and then complain to the owner, and the owner has a drive me crazy reaction, and then the owner complains to the waiter, and the waiter has a drive me crazy reaction. So everybody's having the same kind of reaction for a different reason, and it kind of slows it down. I go, yeah, I do that all the time. I get driven crazy. So I learned from that. I'm an attorney by day, and again, writing about the experience of a lawyer. I say, like, in law school, the first year, it's 3 years of law school. So the first year, they teach you how to get on people's nerves. And the second year of law school, they teach you how to rub people the wrong way. And then the third year of law school, they teach you how to get underneath people's skin. So if you could do all three things at the same time, then you're a lawyer. That's why people don't like lawyers. So that's who I surround myself with all day long, and I'm an attorney myself, and that could get me pretty cranky. But again, having that kind of like chuckle inside, I kind of like have fun with it. Okay, I'm not going to get like all kind of bent out of shape. So I do mediations, I negotiate, and a lot of it comes from my work. So my writing comes from my work. So in this one case, the mediator comes in, he gives a message, and we're all kind of yelling at him. And he goes, "Don't shoot me, I'm just a messenger." And my reaction goes, when I was a kid, I used to be a messenger too. They paid me like $3 an hour to be a messenger. This guy's getting $500 an hour. For $500 an hour, I don't need like, I could get somebody for $3. I don't need like such a high paid messenger. So again, I have another chapter in my Cranky Superpowers book, Cows Come Home, CrankaTsuris, where this, again, it was a mediator. No, you could argue till the cows come home. So that created the story in my head with cows trying to get cows to come home. So again, it's about having fun and with it, and also educating myself. So when I'm writing this stuff, I'm writing for me as much as the person who I want to read it and maybe get something out of it.
When I must say, I could relate to this personally. Like when you were talking, I could relate myself. And of course, I'm taking this point away with me. Once you told like you have the giggles inside before you get cranky. So definitely I'm going to implement this in my own life, because I do get cranky at times. I'll try to implement and make myself a little better and try to make crankiness my superpower. This is something I could relate personally.
Yes, yes. So and one of the, just even in terms of relationships, again, because that's where we get cranky in relationships. So I talk about in the chapter CrankaTsuris Menopause. First, I have this wedding where like they have to, do you take this person for better or for worse? And oh yeah, sure, yes. Now we had to pick a choice, better or worse. And they they both end up picking worse and in sickness. So, but it's a funny story there. But then I talk about my own relationship where I say we have a rule where you get to be 20% crazy, 5% insane, but you have to be 75% normal. And then you might think that, oh, that's a crazy idea. I do the math. 20% crazy. That's over 70 days a year. I don't know. I can handle that. So, but I say it's counterintuitive, because if I told you that you were like, first of all, if I told you you're allowed 0% crazy, you're not allowed crazy at all, 0%. So when you become crazy, because we all become crazy, you can't say that you're crazy. You say, I'm not crazy. You're the one who's really crazy. And that kind of makes me crazy, being told I'm crazy by a crazy person. So then I start thinking you're insane. And then we have this big one insane, crazy fight. But by giving you permission to be crazy, you actually appreciate, yeah, I'm feeling a little crazy now. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Yep, like 20%. You end up using like maybe 1 or 2% crazy, as opposed to when you're not allowed, you're probably going to be like ending up 50, 60% crazy. So it kind of works.
Yeah, of course it does. And I can relate to this. Okay, so moving on, would you like to talk about some of the messages in your book? For example, why is time in more effective than time out?
Okay, so that was a personal story. Like where when I was my daughter is going to be 29 this year. So that time in, time out long went past. But when she was a kid, we would put her in time out, because that's what the books told us to do. And you send her up to her room, and she's doing whatever she wants. Like, wow, that's really good. And I was talking about my own experience of I didn't have a timeout, I had a time in, and I would explain it in a couple ways. Where my favorite one is when my mother would ask me, Stevie, do you feel like taking me to the beauty parlor? And yes, that's what I wanted. It's a beautiful beach day. My friends are going out to the beach and they're going to have a great time, and it's hot, and I'd rather go to the beauty parlor. And, it's like a 3-hour, and it's not like I drove her. We had to take a bus without air conditioning, and it's hot, and it's to Allerton Avenue in the Bronx. I grew up in the Bronx, so in New York City, and they put my mother in curlers, and they put the little spaceship thing on her head, and it's a whole day to go to the beauty parlor. So that was like kind of like time in, not the time out. And I think again, you learn to be patient with all of that stuff. With a time out, you're just playing, and you're almost like getting rewarded for being a little bad, I guess, and you're going for your time out. But time in, you learn to take care of people. That's always the time in was. I guess I had to sit with the family and be the remote control person, or switching the channels or doing something. That was the time in, and it does change your perspective. That if you have to help somebody, it's just what you do. You don't have to get cranky. Maybe you get a little cranky, but you don't. You kind of see the good side of it as well. Yes, I'm helping my mom out and keeping her company and going to the beauty parlor, being a good son, that sort of thing. And despite the fact that I might be cranky, and yes, I would have preferred going to the beach with my friends, but it's a learning experience.
Well, again, I totally blown away with the way how you explain the things, and along with the messages. It's totally fun to listen to you and read, of course. I'll be looking forward to all your books for sure. And these stories are so relatable that we could always relate. Like, yes, we do need to choose sometimes families over friends, responsibilities over fun. So yes, of course, the way you explain things I'm blown away by this, at least. Finally for explaining. So yes. So moving ahead, one more question. Why do we often forget to prepare the best? Like in chapter 18, I've mentioned, hoping for the best crank service.
Again, this is like a combination of my life as an attorney, and then just life in general. So that was a fun chapter. But what triggers it is that I manage lawyers, and they're going to argue, let's say, some motion they hope they win, and it's like, we hope for the best, we hope for this, we hope for that, we hope for this, we hope for that. And the strategy, I'm listening, what's your strategy is about hope. And so like I when I managing attorneys, it's like, how do we prepare for the best, not just hope for the best? So that got me thinking. I wrote this story about this was the Jewish people were slaves in Egypt, and people get a brochure, tired of winter in like building pyramids in Egypt. How about springtime in the land of milk and honey? And it says, be forewarned, while we hope for the best, we will only have prepared for the worst. So of course, in this tyranny, it takes them 40 years in the desert. I say part of the reason is like, well, whenever they go up to Moses, hey, do you bring a map? No map. Well, we hope for the best. We only prepared for the worst. Or they get to the sea, and the Egyptians are coming with the chariots. Certainly had a cruise ship. I hear your great grandfather Noah had had a big cruise ship and even had a zoo on it. No, we hope for the best. We only prepared for the worst. No cruise ship, So at every point in time, preparing for the worst, they got the worst. So the question is, how do you prepare for the best? And when you prepare for the best, not just hope for the best, you do the work. Yeah, you actually do the work that's necessary. Then again, you end up being less cranky and feeling, I accomplished something, as opposed to like that passive hoping. I just hope, whatever, and not do anything about it. And if you're only hoping and not, you're maybe not going to get where you want to go.
Cannot agree more. Yes, we do prepare for the worst and just passively hope for the best. That's true. But then, yes, that's something like manifesting. If you prepare for the good, then definitely something good will happen for sure.
Yes,
that's true. And before we end the last question, we would also like to know about your children's book and the Snooner series. Children's book, the Snooner series.
So, okay, I'm going to show you. So I did have Snoodles, Poodles, Cadoodles, and lots of noodles. And my follow-up one is Snoodles in Space, a Snoodle, Doodle, Cadoodles, and One Happy Schmoodle, coming out, I think maybe next month or the month, whenever we get the printers going. It's all done, finalized from cover to cover. Is Snoodles in Space Episode 2, The Zoodles Strike Back. And I'm very, so just to explain for the viewers, a Snoodle was invented by Herbie Snoodleman. And before that, everybody was driving in krautmobiles, which ran on sauerkraut. It was really stinky and made people cranky. But the Snoodle that runs on noodles, you just go to the Ramonolium, fill up your Snoodle with noodles, and off you go. And not only that, when you get home, you can press a button and you get a bowl of noodles for dinner. So it was great, and it made everybody happy. So in my next book, the story continues. Snoodles in Space. These parents, Norman Noodle and Sally Strudel, gets abducted by the Zoodles to do brain surgery on Cloodle the Grand Roodle, who became a wackadoodle, and the kids help them. So next book I'm very excited about because, like everybody knows, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where you have like the bad kids, like now the Willy Wonka movie is out. The bad kids, they get kind of humiliated, and so I had an idea, like, let me like make these kids like heroes at the end. So I have these kids, because their father was the richest person in town, because he had the Groodle, which runs on gruel, which preceded the Krautmobile, even worse than the Krautmobile. But Frimpy Frumpy Fruidle and Wimpy Whiny Woodle, and they go to the Chockadoodle factory. And Frimpy Frumpy Fruidle has a Fitsy Witsy Popadoodle, and first he fits, and then he wits, and then he popped. And Wimpy Whiny Woodle had a Swizzly Twizzly Slimadoodle, and first she swizzled, and then she twizzled, and then she turned into a bucket of slime. Of course, all the newspapers have headlines, not very kind. The kids start calling them Popadoodle and Slimadoodle, but then they end up saving the planet and being heroes at the end. So I like the stories that there's redemption. People make mistakes, but it's okay. We learn from mistakes, and then they become heroes. So, and then in every book, I have a museum opens up. So in this, in the first book, there was an art museum. Then in the second book, there was a space exploration museum, and now I'm going to have an aquarium in this book. And in the next book, even after that, is Escape from Zoodletraz. And that's a music-themed book, which I'm very excited about. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, it did sound very interesting, and need not to mention, but the cover of the book was so interesting. I will really look forward for the book to be published and read that for sure.
Yes, I have an amazing illustrator, and I actually was in England this past week visiting my illustrator, talking about 5 gazillion ideas, and he's amazing. Andy Case. I was in Nottingham, so had a good time there.
Yeah. So with that, it comes to an end. Thank you so much, C, for sharing your time, insights, and experiences today. It was great to explore the fascinating one of crankiness, and it's been truly an interesting conversation. And I'm sure our audience will get greatly benefited from your wisdom and perspective. At least me, for sure. I am taking away a lot of things from you today.
Thank you.
That, wishing you continued success with your book and future endeavors. Thank you so much for your time.